Hey, you're watching The Press Row. I'm Jenni here with Barry. One more topic of conversation about Oklahoma State basketball. Barry, on Wednesday, Mike Holder talking to media. He obviously spoke during Brad Underwood's introductory press conference, but then spoke to media afterwards on the side and talked about a meeting he had with the Sutton family. Eddie, Sean, Scott, Steve, who's not in coaching, but met with the Suttons, really felt like that was important to go and talk to the Sutton family, as much as anything to say, I'm sorry, to apologize. Barry, you wrote about this the day we found out that Brad Underwood had been hired, his connection to Jack Hartman, who has connections to Coach Henry Iba, who Gallagher Iba is named after. Just seems like there's a move to really try to unite the past, the history, the heritage with what's going on currently in Cowboy basketball. Good move in your mind?
Well, it's a great move, and it's a humanitarian move. Now, it's also fallen on the sword. I mean, I don't know that Mike Holder has anything to apologize for.
Right.
Mike Holder's not done anything, I don't think, to hurt the status of OSU basketball. Travis Ford had some good times, and then things didn't really work out, and things are where they are. But, the Suttons themselves had a hand in this with both Eddie's and Sean's substance abuse problems. So, the fan decline started under Sean. It didn't start under Travis Ford. It's accelerated under Ford to distressing levels now. But, I first wrote about, the empty seats at Gallagher Iba when Sean was the coach.
Right.
So I think Holder has fallen on his sword, but it's a good move. And the truth of the matter is, the Suttons never really, Sean naturally felt disconnected because he'd been the head coach and had the fall from grace. But I think Eddie always felt still connected to OSU. Travis never did anything to disconnect from Eddie. Eddie felt comfortable enough to come to a lot of games when his health was good and would sit on the front row. He was at Gallagher Iba this season on a couple of occasions. So it's a magnanimous gesture by Holder. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's good just from a Holder-Sutton relationship because, they had a strained relationship in the latter days of Eddie's tenure as the coach. So I think that's very good that just that part seems to getting put back together. And maybe Mike Holder's and part of his message was, hey, I'm sorry that we didn't have a better relationship. So anytime you can get everybody together feeling better, that's a good thing. I do think Mike Holder, if he's apologizing to the Suttons for the shape of the program, he's been a little hard on himself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'm writing a little bit about this for our Friday newspaper, and I totally agree that, Mike Holder had to do what he had to do when it came to both Eddie and Sean as head coach. There are probably people that would argue with me about that and say, oh, no, they could have kept Eddie, they could have kept Sean. There was just no way, though, in my mind. Mike Holder had to do what he had to do in both of those situations. I do think in some ways part of what Mike Holder was apologizing for, and I think part of it was to extend that olive branch to try to make Sean and all of the brothers, although I think it probably is mostly Sean after he was fired by Mike Holder, make him feel like he could come back at any point just like his dad. But I think as much as anything, Mike Holder sat in that arena this last year, saw how it had changed, saw how the program had just devolved from those wonderful days that he even admitted. He said, I played hooky from things just to make sure I could get to basketball games back in the day. I wanted to be a part of that feeling. And so I think he felt a sense of responsibility. He hired Travis Ford. He didn't fire him maybe a couple years ago when, the contract just didn't allow it. He had given him that 10-year deal. I think he sort of thought, I saw where it was, I saw what it could be, and now it's this, and I feel like I have at least some part in this. Barry, I agree with you. I don't know if it's definitely not 100% of his fault in any form or fashion, but still, the opportunity, for him to go and sit down with the Suttons, and as you said, Eddie comes back, but what if next season we see Eddie and Sean, and occasionally maybe Scott even finds a way to come back to a game? To me, that would speak volumes to a lot of Oklahoma State fans that have been really put off by sort of the Sutton era being, they may feel, left in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, to me, the the key Sutton in all this is Sean. Scott, has always been a loyal soldier, proud alum, good ambassadors coaching at Oral Roberts. Eddie's never felt disrespected, but clearly Sean, there was a divide because of the way he left, his hard feelings, and then his admission that, hey, I had a problem. If Sean can get back in the good graces, I'll give you a crazy, a crazy scenario would be if Sean could ever come back to the program in some capacity.
Right.
He's still a good basketball coach, a good basketball mind. He was an effective recruiter, all kinds of things. I'm not saying that it works for a Brad Underwood hire for his staff, but at some point, Sean Sutton back in Stillwater would be a great, great finish to this story.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's so far-fetched. I mean, clearly Brad Underwood wants to get his people in there, and he's not going to, Mike Holder even said, I'm not going to try to influence anybody that Brad Underwood hires for his staff. He's clearly got some guys that I'm sure he wants to bring in, but James Dickey remains. He's now holding that interim tag, or held that interim tag before Brad Underwood was hired. It was a short-lived thing, but he's on a 3-year contract, so he's still got 1 year left. Even if he doesn't end up getting a spot on the basketball staff, Mike Holder said, hey, there's going to be a spot for James Dickey. We'll put him somewhere. We'll plug him in. He's so respected. We'll find a spot in the athletic department for him. But, when you look around, Barry, there's all sorts of possibilities and jobs. You're looking at, director of basketball ops, or if not a full-fledged assistant. I don't think it's too crazy to think that, Sean Sutton and Brad Underwood might be talking about, could something work out here? I'm not saying it will, but I wouldn't be totally surprised if, when Brad Underwood announces his staff, probably in the coming week or so, if Sean Sutton maybe doesn't have a spot on that, I think he'll at least be looked at by Brad Underwood before he names that staff. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.